Hello. We are at that point of time in the year when birds like to dive bomb me for no apparent reason. I think the real reason is that they've got a nest nearby and they're trying to protect eggs. I never see the nest. I never look for the nest. I figure if they're going to just dive bomb me for being in the area, then if I start poking around looking for eggs, they're going to really attack me. So got to thinking about this animals protecting their eggs. If you came across a few articles in recent months and other things have come up which got me thinking about this. So thought I'd do some research on it and talk about it. So the animals that lay their eggs, there are two mammals, or two classes of mammals, I guess. I don't know if there are multiple subspecies. The platypus and the echidna. Here. They sort of treat their eggs almost like any mammal treats their babies. And we got reptiles, of course, lay eggs. Birds lay eggs. Actually, not all reptiles do. Some reptiles actually give birth to their young live. There are a few species of reptiles which can either lay eggs or give birth live. It's depending. Um, that was an interesting thing to find out. Then, of course, we got fish, we got insects, we got amphibians. Um, I think I mentioned birds. I don't remember if I mentioned birds. They're the obvious ones. Um, so, I mean, one thing, this whole idea of birds dive bombing me is what got me on this subject, and just the whole idea of how do animals protect their eggs, or do they protect their eggs? So we go into some things like, fish in general will lay eggs and swim off. Their eggs are, you know, they attach to the bottom of algae or some water plant or whatever, and parents leave, eggs hatch, baby fish swim off and are on their own. Um, the whole idea, salmon spawning, or some fish spawning to their original breeding ground. At least they've got others of their species hatching around them, so there's some protection there. But for the most part, fish don't really care about their young. Uh, Amphibians are pretty much the same too. They lay their eggs and they leave them, and they hatch on their own. Um, Speaking of, read an interesting little tidbit about eels. Supposedly, freshwater eels will return to the Bermuda Triangle to lay their eggs, which is interesting because we've got these freshwater creatures swimming into the saltwater seas in order to lay their eggs. And after that, supposedly we have been able to raise eel eggs and young eels in captivity. No one has ever seen a baby eel in the wild, according to this article. We know where they lay their eggs. We've just never found them, apparently. Um, just a little aside. We were just talking about fish, so I thought I'd bring that up. Um, so we mentioned reptiles. So reptiles are where we start to get into some interesting things where some reptiles abandon their eggs. Sea turtles, famous for it. Other animals will protect their eggs. Some will protect them for a short period of time. There seems to be no rhyme or reason to any of this. Some snakes protect their eggs for a short period of time. Some snakes abandon their eggs. It's just sort of a catch as catch can. There is no real rhyme or reason to who's going to protect their eggs and who's not. That said, crocodiles and alligators are the ones most famous for protecting their eggs, so far as reptiles go. And even then, there's like one or two subspecies which they don't even do that. They lay their eggs, more or less abandon them. And this is one of those things. One of the things got me onto this topic. Besides the birds dive bombing, we was thinking about this. There are movies, crocodile movies, and they're going to protect their baby eggs. And so I got curious. Do they actually? Then yes, most alligators, most crocodiles do protect their babies. But the idea, someone found the egg and he took it back to his campsite, and then the alligator tracked him 3 miles to find his egg back. That doesn't really happen that much. Which brings us to the third movie in the Jurassic Park series, where guy takes a velociraptor egg. And so for the rest of the movie, the velociraptors are chasing them around the island until they, finally give up the egg. Would that have really happened? Look up, did dinosaurs protect their eggs? And found a very generic statement about, we know enough about dinosaurs to say yes, they would have. And no details. So I'm wondering if that's just something someone wrote to blow smoke or what. I would imagine that dinosaurs were similar to modern day reptiles in the sense that some of them protected their eggs and others didn't. Again, in the movies, it always looks good. The adults coming to protect their eggs or to hunt down their eggs that have been stolen. But in real life, does this happen? Not often. Which brings us to birds. Now, birds, for the most part, will protect their eggs. You will find abandoned nests sometimes, and that's usually the eggs just didn't attach for some reason, and which happens. I think found one site said about 21% of all eggs don't hatch. The mother lays the eggs just for whatever reason don't hatch. Outside of that, again, they are very protective. I'm assuming that these birds that have dive bombed me in the past were protecting a nest which I couldn't find. It only seems to happen in the springtime, so I'm assuming eggs are involved. That said, though, from time to time you'll find an egg laying on the ground, and there's a nest up in the tree. So where's the parents? They say don't put the egg back in the nest because one reason that a bird will abandon its nest is if it smells human on it. So they do not go too close to birds' nests, even if they have eggs in them. And trying to replace a bird's egg into its nest will just make the other eggs in that nest unwelcome to the parents. That said, question comes up then, so where are the parents? When we see this egg on the ground and there's a nest, where's the parent? You hear stories of, there's the mother bird in the tree looking down at the egg and can't do anything about it and sad that they lost their child. I've never seen this. Again, it's something from time to time people say. I don't know how real it is. Ostriches, I looked up ostriches because they are supposedly abandon their eggs. And according to one site, they will not abandon their eggs. However, if an egg rolls out of its nest, they'll leave it for some reason. So the idea, birds, they care for their eggs up to a point. And then outside of that point, they sort of stop caring for them. There's a point of no return where they're not abandoning their egg, but they are considering it a lost cause. Again, there are a bunch of different. I'm sure different bird species do things differently. So, talking in generalities here, there are probably some species which are more protective than others. I'd have to look up every species individually to try to figure that one out, and I'm not going to. farmer did an experiment, saw a YouTube video. The guy raised eagles, part of a conservation effort. Raised eagles. So he did an experiment where he replaced one of his eagle eggs with a chicken egg and one of his chicken eggs with an eagle egg. Managed somehow to do this without the eagles clawing him up. But eagles took care of the chicken egg, chickens took care of the eagle egg, then the eggs hatched. Eagles ignored the baby chicken. They continued to feed the young eaglets, ignored the baby chicken. They recognized this is not our child. Could not recognize the egg was not theirs, but could recognize that the hatchling was not theirs. Chickens continued to raise the eagle, the young eaglet. So this went on for a couple days, and then the farmer switched the babies back. Gave the baby eagle back to its parents, gave the baby chicken back to its parents. Eagles recognized it as a baby eagle and started to raise it. Gave it food and stuff. Chickens continued to raise the chicken like any other. So again, we get the eagles and the chickens, and they can't seem to recognize the difference between the eggs. But once the eggs are hatched, they can recognize the difference between the babies, or at least the eagles could. Thought that was interesting. Along those lines, the cuckoo. Cuckoo is famous for laying its eggs in another bird's nest. Now, one thing I did not look up because I didn't think to was, does it wait until the other bird has laid eggs and then lays its eggs among them? In which case it has to wait until the other bird leaves the eggs for some reason. Which again, birds tend to be protective of their eggs. So sometimes, they still have to eat. They're going to leave. Usually won't go too far away to eat. Some birds, they'll take turns. The parents take turns. One goes to eat, the other one watches the eggs. But the cuckoo somehow manages to get in here, because I'm imagining he doesn't just do it in an empty egg nest, because otherwise, the host birds come back and say, wait a second, there's this egg in my nest. I don't remember laying that, So I assume that the cuckoos do this primarily in eggs which already have, or nests that already have eggs in them. Now, they do this so that someone else will raise their children for them, basically. The cuckoo egg hatches, the host parents feed them along with their babies. So, unlike the eagle, which I think eagles take turns watching their eggs, so the cuckoo would never get a chance. Some birds will not recognize their young, and they will feed a strange baby bird. Now, another thing about the cuckoos is, if the cuckoo egg hatches first, and it is left alone, the parents go to look for food or whatever, the baby cuckoo will try to push the other eggs out of the nest. And again, this goes back to the whole idea, when eggs are not in the nest, the parents just sort of look at them as a lost cause, and they don't go looking for them. They feed the baby cuckoo, they don't look for their other eggs, for some reason. So, we get, again, birds are protective of their young, they're protective of their eggs, they're not as protective as their young after they're hatched. It's interesting. Yeah, I got to wondering if we want to look for the jerk gene, is there any genetic code that makes someone a jerk? Let's study cuckoo birds, because this is the whole. Let's have someone else raise our children. The children, as soon as they're born, they try to eliminate any competition. Cuckoos are the jerks of the bird world. So if there is a genetic code for being a jerk, if we're going to find it, we're going to start by studying the cuckoo DNA, in my opinion. Anyway, and of course, the last we have insects and other bugs. Now, butterflies and moths will abandon their eggs. Most insects are said to be protective of their eggs. I'm not sure about that one exactly. Most colonizing insects are protective of their queen, and the queen spends most of her time in the hatchery after the eggs are hatched, or after the eggs are laid. So, my question on that one is, are they protecting the eggs, or are they protecting the queen, or is the queen protecting the eggs and the rest of the insects are protecting the queen, or how does that work out? Don't know if anyone's ever done any studies to see what happens if you separate the queen from the eggs, but interesting question. Few non-insect bugs. Spiders. Most spiders will be protective of their eggs. A few species will not, and will seemingly abandon them. Scorpions. I don't know if scorpions protect their eggs, but I do know they will carry their young on their back. Some species of scorpion will carry their young on their back for a while, so it makes sense that they would be protective of the eggs as well. Again, get down to what happens if you remove an insect's, a spider's egg sac from its web or whatever. Will it come hunting for it? And again, most of what I've seen, this idea of the animal searching out its egg in the future, or once it's been taken away, I've seen no evidence that supports that this actually happens or not. So that's just weird subject, I know. Like I said, just this whole event of birds dive bombing me got me to thinking about how protective they are, when they stop being protective, which many species, even birds, will stop protecting their youngs after a couple weeks. So it's just interesting, their view of children as opposed to humans' views of children sometimes. And that's really it.